Mate, Jacko, thanks very much for doing this, mate. And particularly on short notice. It's funny, the last one that I did where I didn't really have a huge amount of time to prepare was Mick, and that was one of the most well received podcasts that I've done. So, mate, firstly, thanks for doing this. How are you? Where are you at the moment? Are you still in Fiji or in New Zealand?
Thanks, Doug. No, it's obviously a Fiji way. We're not that organised, mate, so it works out well. So yeah, we're still in Fiji. Today's our day off, so just at the base, mate. The boys have come in getting some massages and stuff, so we don't head to New Zealand till tomorrow night. So it's good to be in 28 degrees sunshine before we get to
Well,
the cold of New Zealand.
yeah, it was like 9 degrees in Sydney this morning. I was like, oh, I don't want to get out of bed. Hey, leading to the semi-final or quarter-final or whatever they're calling it this week versus the Blues, obviously a really big game for the Drua. I won't put this out till way, way after. What are you looking at for the Blues? Is there anything you're going to attack? How are you going to take them on?
Oh, the Blues, I think, have been predominantly the best team of the competition, and really their forwards have been outstanding. So they're a massive pack, scrum well, line out well. So really for us, we just got to bar up, man. So it's if we can get our boys into the game, the hard hitting, fast men, the old Fijian boys. So the only way you can sort of beat the Blues is take them on in their own game. Eden Park's obviously a bit of a colossal sort of place for them, so it's an awesome experience for our young team. Last year, obviously, we got a bit of a toweling it down at the Crusaders in the same time in the quarterfinals, so at least we've experienced that. And yeah, and the boys just got to know this, got to go out there. We played them round one, so that's been good. That was a long, long time ago before, so we've got no sort of scars around that. So it's just get in and let bust.
Hey, what's the draw experience been like for you generally? It seems like watching from afar that it's become quite a special environment. The fans seem to get around the team pretty well. Like I follow a lot of the Fijian news outlets online, and it's all Drua rugby. What's it been like for you over there?
Oh, it's just been so humbling. It's an amazing place to live. Fijian culture, the people are just beautiful people, and to experience it and to be lucky to be part of is phenomenal. So no, I feel extremely blessed and honoured to be part of the draw. Like you said, I think it's taken over the country a little bit. It's been amazing, the support behind it. Not only in Fiji. I mean, a lot of my mates in New Zealand say they sort of only watch Drua footy now because it's good to watch, and it's not always easiest thing to coach, but it's certainly enjoyable to watch, and just the passion around what Fijians can bring to Super Rugby and to rugby has been great, well received by everyone, I think.
As a coach, what have you learned about what it takes to be successful at Super Rugby?
Well, you got to have a good squad. You got to have some good numbers. Like if we probably looked at this year, we've probably overutilized some of our key players too much, which is good because we're such a young team. I mean, this is third year of obviously playing Super Rugby, so we don't have a lot of history behind us. So around understanding how to win games, especially away from home, it's no secret we haven't had a great success on the road. So first of all, trying to bleed some young players in. We've got an extremely young team. We've got a 19-year-old 10 and kid on the wing that's 19. So we've got a lot of young guys that we're happy to just put out there. And I think they've been rewarded with selection this week, and then obviously moving forward, if you look at it, like there's a lot more guys that are pretty keen to come back from France and England who are playing overseas to come back and play for the Drua. So it's yeah, it will be good. It'll be, I reckon, in 3 or 4 years' time when our teams had around about that 1,000 caps instead of the 400 that they've had now. It's only going to get better and better for this team.
Just with the young guys, is there a bit of an education piece as a coach on how to win and how to be a professional? Because obviously everyone has to start somewhere, and 19 is probably a good age to start if the players are good enough. But as you know, there's a difference between being 19, learning to be a professional player, learning how to win, versus someone who's 29, who's had a long career, who's experienced success, been through the failures, and actually learned how to do it. Is there, as a coach, how do you help navigate that so that you're not destroying the players' confidence, but helping them actually grow along the way and help them realize that, hey, we're not there yet, but this is where we're going? Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, no, it's a fantastic question. And it's something that we're working really hard to try and make sure our boys are learning. But exactly like you said, we just got to be positive around where we're at and totally understand what we've got as an athlete. I think most of I'd say our boys now are pretty much where Australian and Kiwi kids are leaving school. So they've had that 3 years, New Zealand and Australian kids or English kids have had that 3 years of being professional at school. So they learn a lot of that stuff going through school. Like how do you prepare? How do you eat? How do you, it's all that off-field stuff that our boys haven't had through their schooling, I suppose. It's not as professional here at the school level. So if you look at our kids now, like I said, I reckon next year it's probably their first year out of school as such. So their learnings are in Super Rugby, not at school level. So the key is, like you said there, then you've got to make sure that their confidence isn't shattered by some things that doesn't always go their way. And one of the things I just talked about there is obviously on the road that the boys just got to understand it's a different scenario, not playing in Fiji, and how do you travel? Like food in Fiji is way different to food in hotels in New Zealand and Australia. So that how do we not eat so much? How do we get out of bed? All those things that are just learning curves, and you don't know. Pretty much every time you take a new kid to an away games, most of the time their first time on a plane, or definitely first time out of Fiji. So it's all that stuff that just accumulates. The more experience we get, the better they're going to be at it.
Is it a matter of so literally some of them have never been on a plane, some of the boys. Is it a matter of sort of putting an arm around them and going, this is how we do things, this is not how we do things? See the impact that eating that extra plate of waffles at breakfast had on you. Is it as simple as that? Just sort of teaching them as they go?
Yep, yes and no, but it's also hard when you've got sort of 30 blokes that you're trying to keep an eye on everything, and they've a lot of what we need for them to do is they've got to learn themselves what's right and what's wrong. And I think one of our greatest assets is our culture that we have in this team, because they're 100% Fijian. We must select Fijian players. So a lot of that stuff that you work on as a coach in any team is trying to get the culture right. We're really lucky that's there. I mean, they're extremely a religious group, so a lot of it's based around the Bible and their lotus, and how their meetings are based around that. So that helps, because then they can help each other around that and what's right and what's wrong. And I keep saying, if we can bring back more people from France and a bit more experience through our team, then they'll be able to help each other around what's right and what's wrong in terms of when you travel and when you're at home. I mean, these boys are now, like I said, they're so young, but they've become sort of celebrities in Fiji. They're on billboards, and so they've gone from a village life to now all of a sudden seeing their picture on a billboard where, they're selling Pepsi or something. It's pretty amazing for these young guys to go from nothing to something really quickly.
Has anything surprised you?
The culture is unbelievable. Like that surprised me. Like, the greatest thing about Fijian is, win or lose, their transition back into just normal life is just really quick. And sometimes for a coach it could be a little frustrating. I remember winning our first game in year one, and it was sort of like, shit, boys, did we just win, or was it like, you just don't worry about it, so their levels of enthusiasm from winning to losing isn't huge. It's straight back into a lotu and a song and a beautiful voices, and it's then back on the bus or back to their village life, and that's it. So that's surprising. It's just they're very very flat.
Probably very healthy. That's probably a very healthy approach.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing. Like I said, sometimes it's a little bit frustrating for coaches, because you probably want them to learn a little bit more by. But that's probably a European way versus a Fijian way. I mean, it's pretty much the same when there's tragedy in a tsunami or a cyclone comes through. It's like, oh shit, just get back up and build our village and we'll be right. So it doesn't matter if it's rugby or it's life. It's just beautiful human beings that just get on with life real quickly.
Mate, I love that. I want to talk to you about your transition from playing to refereeing to coaching. Obviously, a bit of an unusual career. I don't think many people go from the elite levels in all three. What made you decide to go from the stress-free environment of elite refereeing to the stress-free environment of elite coaching? How did that come about? And how has it helped you more broadly understanding how elite refereeing works?
Yeah, it's probably when I finished, I always wanted to go into coaching. But I probably had enough of the team thing. I'd been professional rugby for 12 years and finishing it became a very management-driven game. I think around how many coaches you have, how many managers you got. Guys or professional rugby for a while there, I think you couldn't think for yourself. It was all handed to you. And so when I finished rugby, I thought I really wanted to stay in the game, but I wanted to do something that's just more individual and learn, about yourself a little bit more. So just very lucky. New Zealand Rugby were amazing around giving me an opportunity and a chance to go into the reffing thing. And, I loved it. It was 11 years of hard work, as you can well imagine, being a ref, but you learn a lot about yourself. You learn a different side of the game. You learn how to deal with coaches and upsets and the public, and all that probably sets up pretty well for them going into coaching. And again, I was lucky. I had a hip replacement. That's what stopped me from reffing. So then Vern Cotter coached Fiji, so he got me on board, and very lucky again to just know some good people at the right time, and then to then obviously go from the national team into the Drua has been a beautiful for myself and the family. We've loved it here, so it's certainly helped. I think not doing this straight playing into coaching just gives you a little bit more aspect and understanding of what the game's about, really.
Hey, what I was going to ask you specifically about refereeing, one of the aspects that I've done this year in my coaching, which I'd never done previously because I never saw the value in it, is actually send refs clips and ask for feedback. And is there a way that refs prefer coaches to engage with them? And without going into too many details, is there a bad way to engage with refs?
Oh, there definitely is a bad way. Yeah, that's for sure. Look, I haven't really done a lot of that in the first couple of years. I've started to do it more now, and I think that it is beneficial around it. I think if there's just one aspect that you're this is pre-game, so if there's only one aspect that you think that's really beneficial around communicating with the referee, then that's good. So having, like, for an example, last week there was a few things that breakdown that we were just interested in around how we do it better, more on our side. So it was sort of that was the theme of, I sent 4 clips with a voiceover. So it was just more of a screen record type thing with my voice, just so at least they knew I was just coming from a good place around it, and it wasn't like anything else. And I got some feedback from the ref saying, it was a good way of communicating, because we could tell it gave the ref the time to watch it when he needed to, so it wasn't any rush, and then it was just like he could understand I was just coming from a place for us to be better at what we're doing. So it was sort of, I found that quite a good way around it versus an email or a chat, or then there's no real personal feel around how you're doing it. So that worked pretty well, I thought, and I would probably do that more if there is something. So, for instance, this week I haven't got anything around the Blues, so there's no need to. So it's only just if it really is something that I think is glaringly obvious for a game. Afterwards, look, I've made an effort after every single game to go and have a beer with the ref, and I've only once not done that. So I think it's and I knew if I had gone in that time, I probably would have said something I would have regretted. So that was good. And I learned that from Scott Wisemantle. When I was reffing, no matter what, he'd come in and Wisey would have a beer. He wouldn't really talk about the game, just talk about the family and stuff like that. And he did it from a place, nothing apart from just being a good bugger. And so I've sort of tried to do that just from, I've never talked about the game around it with the refs. I've just had a beer and said thanks, and it's a tough job and it's work. It's just like at some stage you're going to be pissed off, aren't you, around a performance? But the best way to get over is just go and have a yarn with a fella. So I know how hard that job is, and when you've had an average game as a referee, you still want to be part of the game. And another thing that Drua do really well, we have good after matches here. The opposition sort of come and then we invite the refs. So last week was amazing. We had the Rebels in our chain. In the aftermatch, we had the referee and the touch judge, and how general manager Baden stands up and says, "How good is this? This is old school, club footy, where you got both teams and having a beer and talking about footy." And we sort of lose a lot of that, which makes it harder again for the referees to feel like they're really part of the team.
I think that community side after the game is part of the reason people fall in love with playing rugby in the beginning, and maybe part of the reason people fall out of love with it when it starts to become a job. Mate, just on the refereeing side, how hard is it? Can you give people some idea? Obviously, at the professional level, you have the luxury of the video ref, or maybe not the luxury, depending on how some people view it. But how challenging is that role?
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough because it's getting tougher and tougher, and I don't think the video ref helps. Like personally, for me as a referee, I think you then second guess yourself too much, and you rely and hoping that someone can cover your ass, which is, it's better when you're just out there and get it. I get it afterwards. Sometimes you're going to get some grief if you get a big decision wrong, but I think around that stuff it doesn't make it easier. I think our biggest issue at the moment is the safety of the game and how referees then have to ref the safety aspect. And that's always, I think it's against a lot of what referees actually want. They want a good game of footy. If there's a bit of a shot, there's a bit of a shot, And our game at the moment, I get we've got to look after our players, but shit, she's a tough one to watch at times, isn't it? Around what's a head contact and what's happened, and are we even getting any more injuries than what we're supposed to? So it's a really difficult one because it relies and falls on the referee's shoulders to get that stuff right instead of more the players and the coaches. So that's and then what happens is you can't just be yourself when you go out and ref, and I've seen it. I've been there. Like when you can't just be yourself, you often aren't as good a referee as you'd like to be. So yeah, it's a really tough one at the moment, I reckon.
That's really interesting. That's really interesting to hear that. But at our level at the moment with the new high tackle law, I think it's become even harder for the guys, and from a coaching perspective, it's different every single week because guys have different interpretation of the new law. So yeah, I think it's good to get some insight into how hard it actually is. Were there any mistakes that you made early on that helped you?
Yeah. Oh shit, you're always making mistakes. So I mean, I remember reffing France versus Tonga, I think, and there was a good old-fashioned scrap. It was good, actually, a couple of good real punches. And I made a rookie error. I'd never sent anyone off, but this is a test match now, and I sent them both off at the same time. Anyway, they carry on scrapping on the way over. So some referee comes to me and goes, well, Wayne Barnes actually was on the sideline. He says, mate, what are you doing? Like, you never send two people off together. I was like, oh, of course you wouldn't. These guys still went for it. So I was sort of like, yeah, things that you don't, just you're always learning and refereeing because there's so many things that just come up and you go, shit, I didn't even know that could happen or it does happen. So the good thing is, I reckon you got to learn from those things. But it's like anything in life, when you come across, as long as you understand the mistake you've made and then can pass it on to others, I reckon is something that's really good with like what Wayne did to me there. When you got older guys who pass it on around their experiences, and hopefully that can help you before you stuff up your own one.
What's the prep like for for a big game. Were you guys going and do, when you were refereeing, were you going and do reviews or previews of the teams that you're going to be refereeing, look for trends? How do you guys actually attack prep for a big game, or how do the refs?
Yeah, it's very individual around it. Like I guess because of my playing background, I didn't like to do too much prep around trends because I also knew that you're a coach, everyone's coach, not often too many teams come out and do the same thing the week they did before, so you're sort of looking at nothing anyway. So
Yeah,
but I think the most important thing is understand what sort of captain you've got. Like, is it someone that loves to get in your grill and is really passionate or emotion, or is a guy that just sits back and you just got to understand first of all who they are, because it's important to get the captain on your side and understand. Then I think it's important to say, well, who's your 9 and 10? Are they going to cause me grief all day today or something like that? So it's just understanding the environment you're going in. One of the things I really like to try and tell the referees from experience is around what's happened the week before. Like, and you can find out in a big club game, like, did you lose last minute? And now is the coach coming in hot anyway? And I think it's important. You got to understand the environment on that side, because if then the referee goes up and just says, "Hey, don't care, you go, mate, you went right," and he goes, well, "What do you mean, mate? I just lost last week because of a shit decision." Of course, not everyone's all right. So
there's been a bit of that this year.
yeah, so you got to. I think it's really important. Referees talk to each other. Says, "Should I had some problems because, mate, I stuffed up. The coach was real hot. I told him to piss off." So it's important that you understand your environment. I reckon, especially as a young referee, because you're turning up trying to act like you're positive and confident around what you're doing. Sometimes that can look like he's a bit arrogant or something like that. So it's just preparation around more the environment, more than the game. I think is probably an important aspect for the young referee.
What do we need to do to attract more referees? Like, I look at it and go, that's a tough gig, particularly at the community level or the semi-professional level. What do you think? What do you think would drive more people to it, or particularly former players? Like, how do you attract more former players who've actually played at a good level into refereeing, do you think?
Oh shit, it's a hell of a hard question. I know every province in New Zealand and Australia and Fiji, everywhere is struggling with getting referees. I reckon one of the things that we talked about just before around after matches, but the referee community used to be an older group, I reckon, an older group of people, men and women that had professional jobs. So they did it because they enjoyed it. They had a club, their own sort of club scene where it was good, and they'd come together because they knew it was tough, but you'd catch up for a beer afterwards, or Tuesdays meetings were more of a having a beer with mates and stuff like that, and it created probably a lot of friendship out of it. Now, and it's right, we're getting a lot younger refs. The physique of a referee's changed. They've got to be fitter, they've got to be faster, and so you're taking away a whole lot of people that probably just wanted to do it for a bit of fun on a Saturday to have a beer with some mates. So I think we're sort of gone a little bit too far down what a referee looks like versus who is a referee. So we're sort of losing a lot of those, just the good bugger. So you talk about ex-players like Nick Berry's obviously done really well. Sort of, I came out and did well. There's a few more that are doing it, but they're not going to do it. Unfortunately, probably just to have a club game and get abused. So and most of them are broken anyway, so they're not running around. So it's a really tough one at the moment. It's a bit of a concern, isn't it, around how do we keep getting good people in the game?
I don't want to bang on about refereeing. I just think it's really interesting from a coaching perspective to understand. To understand.
Sorry, mate.
You're mate. No stress. I won't keep you too much longer. I just think it's really interesting to get an understanding of from a elite coach what it was like to be a referee, because I feel I certainly am learning more about how to engage with refs and how to actually not use them, but be productive around that relationship. Maybe the last ref question, mate, is was there some adjustment to dealing with that level of criticism?
Um,
Like personally, because it's a very unusual career where you judge very harshly every week, win, lose, or draw. And I suppose the best games that you ever had is when no one brings you up.
yeah, yeah. Look, when I reffed, I had a kiwi for orchard, so I just used to sit on a bloody lawnmower for about 4 days and make sure I saw no one. So you just got to understand. You're going to understand that that's part of your job. You're going to get criticised anyway, even if you have a good game. You know, someone's lost, and it's certainly gone too far, like social media. But that's social media around the world, isn't it? It doesn't matter if you're a referee, you're a student, or you're, you know, the online bullying and all that crap's everywhere. So it's that side of the things is, well, if you want to be on social media, then you'd accept the criticism as well a little bit. So, which isn't right, but that's part of the world sort of thing with it, and that's what refereeing does. So yeah, I don't think the criticism's got any worse. Like, you know, like it's always been there. So
Yeah.
It's just part of the job, and you've got to understand that is part of the job, and how you deal with it is real up to you as an individual, and you've got to have a pretty good family that understand that as well. So that's really important.
I suppose of all the things in refereeing, the ability to deal with criticism would have helped you transition to coaching, because you get just as much criticism, maybe not as harshly, but you get just as much criticism as a coach. Transitioning from an assistant coach into a head coach next year, have you done an audit, or have you sat down and looked at any skill sets that you might need personally to help you transition into head coach? Because it's a very different role within a team.
Yeah.
Have you looked at that?
Yeah, massively. It's like, as you said, it's a completely different role. It's amazing being a assistant coach here, because you're more of everyone's mate. You know, like it's a great role. Be the life of the part. You know, bring the energy. You only got one area to look after. You know, selection's not really up to you. You have a say, but you know, it's all on the head coach shoulders. And you've obviously had Mick on here, so he's done an amazing job for the last 3 years. I learned a lot from him. One of the great things, I guess, with the history of what I've done is I've been coached by some amazing people, like Eddie Jones, Joe Schmidt, Vern Cotter. You know, so to understand how all of that works, and try and take out the best of bits and pieces of everyone is probably one of the skills that I've really worked on, around understanding what was good around that guy, what did he bring that was different to each other, and then you got to try and obviously get your team management more, just to make sure they're living the path that you want to go down. So it's yeah, you got to do a lot of thinking. When I was interested in the role, it's certainly again a big discussion to have with your family around. So we've gone from this pretty cool life of just looking after the attack, which isn't that bad with Fijians running around everywhere, to right now everything's more work, more hours, more pressure. Again, social stuff, the social side of how that looks, and yeah, so you've got to go in with your eyes wide open around that. And there's certainly plenty of stuff that I've written down, talk to people. What does it all look like? How does it fit into our lives? And then just go for it. But I'm super excited. I feel extremely honoured, as you probably picked up, about this club and these people here. So I'm really looking forward to going into that next challenge.
Mate, you mentioned some really good coaches that you had the opportunity to work with or learn from. How do you filter the good from the go, maybe I don't like that? And then how do you sort of use that but you keep true to yourself, is I think what I'm trying to say. So you don't want to go in and beat Joe Schmidt, because the players are going to say, what's he doing? But you could take what you learned from Joe and use it, but be yourself.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
Yeah, mate, that's super important. You've got to be yourself. And again, hopefully looking back in the record, my career is, you know, you've done, I haven't just gone from playing to coaching. So the reffing side, so bits and pieces of everything. And especially again with the reffing, you've got to be yourself. Otherwise, you can't do your job. So, as you said, you got to pick up and you got to learn, and podcasts and everything like that are amazing around understanding where coaches, what they talk about, and their what they bring personally to a team is really important. You can borrow stuff from everyone around. Okay, that would work for me, but you've got to borrow it, knowing that you can do that in your own way. Otherwise, like you said, there's no way I can be Joe Schmidt, who's unbelievable in terms of his knowledge of rugby, individual understanding of every little bit of skill, and then how he tells people how to be better rugby players. I can't be Eddie Jones, unbelievably brilliant around bringing a team together in his own way, with his humour and his toughness and how he puts that together. I can't do that, but I like some of the things he does do with it. Yeah, Vern Cotter's understanding of when to step in and talk to the boys is just out the gate. Like his rugby brain and understanding of, right, this is the time I'm stepping in and I'm going to tell the boys what they need to hear is the best of the best I've seen. So all those little bits you got to get, and you got to borrow and go, well, that's cool. But if I try and do it, or if anyone tries to do it without doing it in their own personal way, then they're going to be found out pretty quick, I reckon.
I reckon just as valuable as learning the good from others is maybe learning some of the things that you don't like as well. Have you, obviously without going into detail, but have you, because you can really learn from everyone, either good or bad. How important is it learning what not to do as a coach?
Yeah, well, it's important. I'd say I'm a pretty positive and forward-thinking guy, and I actually, if something's not great or I didn't like it, it's sort of bin it pretty quick, probably too quick, that I don't actually, you're right. You got to have some understanding around what's not great. I think for me, one of the biggest things here is just to continue with our team culture and understanding of what it means to be a Fijian. And you're gonna learn again, just like I talked about the referee. You're gonna do things, or I'll do things next year. My first year, I just go, oh shit, that was just shit, and I've got to make sure that, okay, don't do that again. It's something that didn't work for this team. I'm looking to bring some pretty good management assistant coaches on there. I think it's important they've got to understand and be experienced to back up my inexperience as a head coach. So, that balance has got to be really important around who I bring in. And we've got some amazing Fijian backroom staff. Our head trainer has won 2 gold medals with the Sevens. Our head physio has won 2 gold medals with the Sevens. So their experience of winning in big tournaments is huge as well. So it's just about bringing all those people together and trying to get the best out of everyone.
We got a bit of a theme on the podcast about how to have a healthy relationship with failure. Something that I've certainly seen, from my inexperience as a developing coach, is a lot of people are afraid to make mistakes, and that seems to halt their progression because they're not willing to try things, they're not willing to step outside the comfort zone. How important for you is it to have a healthy relationship with failure? And are there any, failures? I mean, it's a dirty word, but are there any failures or mistakes that you made early on that have helped set you up for future successes?
Yeah, I mean, again, reffing, you don't win, so you're always in that failure to mediocre sort of thing. Missed out on a World Cup that I was really gutted. I really wanted to go to the Japan World Cup as a referee, and sort of missed out on that. So it was understanding why. So some failures around, probably I didn't do as much as I should have done. What the hierarchy were after around refereeing. So learning around that. Look, we've had 3 years of the Drua, and we've won 2 away games. So that's not ideal as well. So making sure that we understand I wouldn't call it failures, but just your learnings around some how to be better. So I think everything is you're right. You're trying to create a positive environment that you can always be better. And I think again, the Fijian people make that pretty easy because of how positive they are, and we're going to learn all the time. We always will learn. I just think I don't think failure really, especially for us at the moment, is we've had pretty successful, or not successful, but we've been bloody good to get into 2 quarterfinals out of 3 seasons. So it's just making sure, okay, those little mistakes that I think can be fixed pretty easily. And I've talked about a couple of them. What do we eat when we're away? How do we travel? When do we travel? Where do we stay? Habits are really important here. I think if you get good habits and you've got to continue them, and at the moment we have a habit of what we do at home to win, and we don't have the same habit when we go away. So it's about, again, trying to understand how do we fix all that and get that right for moving forward.
Man, you mentioned something before that I wanted to pick up on from your playing career about how by the end of it, it was all telling players how to think, and too many coaches, not your exact words, but there was a lot of coaches. How do you think the game's changed since you played? Is it still a little bit too systemized in some parts of the world? And how do we get back to helping players look up and see what opportunities are available rather than just playing the option that the coaches have told them, hit here, do that, kick here? Is that kind of what you were referring to?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I started with the Chiefs in '99, and professional rugby had only been for 3 years, so we were still just a bloody club team. We'd have fish and chips on a Thursday after training, and that was our pre-match meal. We'd go and have a few beers on Thursday, then you'd play your game, then off to the pub. But it was, so even though we're a professional rugby player, it was just, we were still virtually, learning. We were getting money, but we weren't much more professional than we were beforehand. So sort of those 12 years, of course, the game had to change and did change. And, we've seen a massive change in the game from the old Australian teams that were just unbelievable, just play and pick off players to where we sort of are now. It's a really big man game. It's one pass, carry, if you're not going anywhere, kick, sort of thing. And again, I probably love this team more than anything because we can't play like that. We're not. First of all, I don't think our boys. One thing with our boys, I reckon you've got to make sure they enjoy it. Is number one. I think number one out of all our parts of this game is the love for it, because they've only been professional for 3 years. So if I went back to where I started in '99, it's probably where these boys are. They're sort of just come from playing village football in the rain to, here you go, let's play a bit of rugby, but you're getting some money as well. So we will probably keep moving that way because these boys are going to get bigger and stronger, and that's the way the game is. But there's some amazing athletes in the game. There's some amazing coaches. So, we've gone from 2 coaches per team to 6, 7. So every little bit of area now is well analysed, and so it's pretty hard to not do what teams are doing now, I think, just to win. So, yeah, it's a good balancing act. I think there's been some amazing footy. Like I reckon that the rugby up in the UK, the 2 semi-finals were top draw games.
Absolutely.
Final in Japan was a brilliant game of rugby. So Super Rugby is getting some really, really good games of footy. The way the Hurricanes are playing, I think they're really playing what's in front. They're offloading a lot, and they've been outstanding this year. So certainly, I reckon the rugby's in a pretty good place at the moment.
Absolutely. Where do you look for ideas as a coach? Do you look at other teams? Do you talk to other coaches? Will you look at other sports? Do you follow, teams in Europe? Do you have a place that you go to look for ideas or trends or how things are being done, or other ways things are being?
Yeah, I love footy. I mean, I must love it because I've been in it for so long. But I love watching all sorts of what teams are doing. I I love what we're going with tap penalties, for example. Like we've scored 30% of our tries are from tap penalties, which is a huge number because we realised, well, our line-out wasn't that great. Our scrum was a bit 50, so we had to try and change what we did. We came up with sort of some movement around that tap penalty versus just going, and it's awesome to see because every team's sort of doing it now. It's been a great change in the game, I reckon. And out of it, it was sort of why we were wasting so much energy on trying to maul when we can just play Fiji style, tap it, and now you're seeing a whole lot more of that. Our line out and our scrum's got a whole lot better out of it too, so now we can vary that up. So I love seeing what teams are now doing on tap penalties, and they're going all around the world around how they do things. So it's good. Obviously, like you said, around other sports, there's some amazing docos around, the Drive to Survive probably changed a bit how teams work, and NFL's bringing out some really good stuff around behind the scenes of their teams. Football in the UK, some great stuff around that, where you're getting a real understanding of how probably more the management work to get the best out of players. So now the stuff online around great podcasts like yours, and you can just listen to so many things. The issue is not too many, because then you just get too many ideas and you think, shit, I'll do that next week, that's a cracker, and then you can probably overdo it a little bit as well. So
mate, I
think it's
like,
important. Sorry, it's important.
I was just gonna say I really like the thinking outside the box. Like going to a tap kick, why not? It's almost another set piece because the defense is all spread and I don't know what you're going to do. Is there anything else that you're sort of seeing or thinking in the game that, it's always been done this way, but why don't we try it this way? It's similar to the Springboks, taking the scrum off the mark. I think it's interesting to hear other ideas about maybe, questioning traditional areas of how things have been done.
Yeah, and you've got to know your team. So it really goes back to probably understanding your team before having an idea of how you want to play. So, like if I go to the Blues, because we've been looking at the Blues, and I know Vern Cotter's done some amazing job in France and won top 14 and stuff like that. So what he's done really well is he's had his style that's working so well with the Blues, which is big men, one pass, a really good nine that can challenge defences, very much like how the French play. So they've got Dupont, who's amazing, and then they've got huge forwards. So how the Blues play is pretty similar to the French, and they've got a great set piece, scrum line-out's unreal, big men, and then they've got some couple of unbelievable wingers who can pick and go and when they need to. So their balance of how they play is because of who they are, and Vern's brilliant at what they're doing. So that wouldn't work with us. So, what did we do in the first 2 years? We've changed now, but we did a lot of overthrows because our boys are a bit so new at line-outs and Super Rugby. So it was like, right, shit, let's just miss the line-out and throw it right over the top. And, scrums, it was just a real quick hook, get out of here. Those things have changed a little bit with us, so you can actually now, change how you play, which meant, of course, we're not going to be able to win every game. Like when you play like that, you're not going to be able to, consistently win every game. But when our boys are on and it's pretty hot in the old Lautoka, then it's pretty hard to keep up with some of that stuff as well. So, so you just got to know. I reckon it's really important to know what you got as a personnel in your team, and then you've always got your idea of how you want to coach, but you've got to make sure that you don't bring a coaching idea to a team that couldn't work, because otherwise it's frustrating for everyone.
Mate, I love it. Mate, I got some rapid fire questions for you, man. I'll let you go. Really appreciate your time. This might not be a rapid fire question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What makes a good coach?
He's got planned. I reckon you got planned around what your habits are. Good. You got to trust in yourself and the team. I think that you've got, and I reckon, making the best culture, making people want to turn up to work not die for each other, but they're just happy to be here, and your environment is a safe one that you can challenge each other. I think it's really important.
Do you have any consistent advice that you give to young coaches?
Probably the same as a referee. You just got to be yourself. Like you can't be passionate, and you can't deliver messages without being true to what it is that you want to get out of yourself. So I think there's a whole lot of coaching online stuff that you can do, but if you don't actually believe in what you can do as a coach, then players can see through that. So you got to be, you got to understand who you are and be true to that.
Love it. Do you listen to any podcasts?
I didn't used to really, but I've really got into it now. And it's probably like your first question way back around where's your ideas around it, and I think now with podcasts, I think you just listen to some amazing people and really get the mindset. I really like the stuff around mindset now, and being positive around turning up to work, and again, not just rugby, but there's some really good stuff in the UK around the football players and managers and around how they do things. So some really good stuff there.
Is there any that you can name for us, just to give some people some ideas?
Yep,
is that the high performance podcast?
Yes, the high performance podcast. I thought that was brilliant. They have some great guests, and I think they do a great job around their questioning and getting a bit like you, mate. Since I knew I was coming on here, I've enjoyed listening to your stuff as well. It's been great.
I appreciate it, mate. I appreciate it. How important are mentors? To me, I've been probably similar to yourself. I've been very lucky to learn from some really good people, and I feel like that's accelerated my progress more than any course or any book or anything that I've been able to do. How important have mentors been for you throughout your coaching career? And do you have anyone that you bounce things off now who might be external from the team that you're at?
I think that mentors are everything, especially it can be a pretty lonely world. And if you haven't got someone that you can bounce an idea off, it's not even just an idea, it's just a yarn around what are you seeing around the game. I've mentioned two guys quite a bit, I suppose, Eddie and Joe, that I think they've been brilliant for me around just being able to talk to them. Not necessarily always about rugby, but it's just even like, should I try this role? Like it's a really good, and Eddie was brilliant. He just came back with some questions. Well, mate, do you want to miss the assistant coach, or you mate, and you want to run a team? So even questions like that you just go, oh, sure, that's a fairly good question that you probably think of, but just hearing it from someone else is brilliant. So. I think it's good. Funnily enough, one of the podcasts Eddie Jones talked about is one of the best guys you should get to know is a hotel GM. And here in Fiji, some of our good mates. So a mate of mine, French guy, Charles, who runs the Radisson here. And it's so true. Like he is on all the time. Yeah, he's 100% with you. But Jesus, peripherals of how everything works is amazing. And being able to talk to him around, so it's totally something different to rugby, but it's what you are as a head coach. You've got to be on to, when you're with someone, you've got to give them 100%, but then you've got to know exactly what's happening around them. So it's good. We've got another guy who runs Seventh Heaven here, which is a amazing platform pontoon here. Best thing in the world. If you come to Fiji, make sure you go to Seventh Heaven, and Ed's become one of my good mates, and same thing. Just around how he runs his staff, because they're all Fijian. So just understanding, okay, well, how do you look after your staff? Your staff are very loyal to you. You do an amazing job. They're always happy. So it's around, right, how ideas are bouncing off who's how do you keep staff happy? How do you look after them? There's a lot of traditions in Fiji. So, where do you sit with all that? So just talking, again, someone like that around keeping everyone happy is really important. It's nothing to do with rugby, but it's to do with how clubs run.
Human beings, mate. How to look after human beings. The other thing I find with talking to other coaches in similar positions as you, or who are doing what you would aspire to do, is that's very refreshing to talk to someone who's as crazy as you, because very few people actually understand, just generally. Mate,
Yeah,
a couple more questions, mate. Do you read much? Do you have the
I
time?
don't. No, I don't. I'll probably read one book a year. It's something I'm disappointed I don't read more. Yeah, but I've never really got into reading.
No, it's an interesting one. I used to read all the time, but now with audiobooks and I do a little bit of that. The other question I had for you, mate, is how do you switch off? How do you switch it off at the end of the day?
um, pretty difficult. Yeah, I've my yeah, Greg Fleming, one of our great assistant coaches here, says I'm ADHD, but you got to be. He says you got to be to do what you're doing. Like I'm always going like we got an amazing base here in Fiji, brand new, extremely great facility, but there's nowhere to get a coffee. So I brought in a coffee van and got a couple of the boys part of the business and said, right, here you go, let's set up a business. Young men, let's see how we go. It's one of the greatest things ever. It's a coffee, Drua Brew, we've called it. It sits outside there, but Jesus, the busiest thing I've ever, it's just another thing. I'm like, what the hell am I doing that for? Like, it's just mental. I got, as if this isn't enough. And my wife Fiona's always like, just stop coming out with stupid ideas, please. Like it's just, I just think, oh shit, we need this for the team. Let's do it. So it's sort of that balance of trying to now just say, right, this job's going to be hard enough. Don't do everything. Um, Play golf, love golf. So it's that's probably the time just to get out and just go right and go and have a hit, and that's sort of the downtime and enjoy. But geez, we live in a great country. It's always warm, sunny. We've talked about Seventh Heaven. That's a nice place to go out and relax. And so there's some great things around here that you can try and take your mind off how busy it actually is.
Mate, I love it. Last question, mate. What advice would you give to an 18-year-old Glen Jackson?
Uh, I think now, like my son's 18, so it's just about 18. So it's a really good question because he wants to be in rugby. Now, hopefully, he's good enough. He's so dedicated to play. But I think one of the good things, I love the game, and now there's so many opportunities in the game. So like, it doesn't have to just be a player. Like you can ref. There's all sorts of management roles. There's trainers. There's coaches, as you talked about. There's so many great things that to be involved
Analysts.
in this game. Analysts, anything. So, the advice I'd give myself, like even if it wasn't a player, like I just love the game, love the sport, and you meet so many good people out of it. Our mate Fraser, obviously, one of the great guys. Like just met him out of working together in rugby. So, yeah, I'd say, even if you can't quite make it as a player, just look at the other avenues of what you can do at university just to still be able to get involved in this game.
Mate, thanks so much for this. I've enjoyed this enormously. I really enjoyed the fact you let us go off the cuff and we just talked. And mate, best of luck this weekend. Best of luck for hopefully the next few weeks. And mate, best of luck for next year. I really, really appreciate it and wish you so much luck and all the best.
Awesome, mate. Thanks. Keep up the great work, buddy. Appreciate it.